Welcome to this DQOA repair video. Today we're going to repair a Panasonic JS800 thermal printer. Usually these printers, they give an error light when the cutter is jammed. That's this box right here. And today we're going to see if we can help you save $400 on swapping these printers out. RDS Minnesota does swap these printers, but I just did one for $400. And I learned real quick how to fix this cutter box or fix this error 9 times out of 10. Now, if you have an error light and you've taken all the paper out of the machine and it still errors out and you can't get it to restart by hitting the restart key, that's a sure sign that you have a printer issue or cutter issue on these printers. And before you start taking it apart, what you want to do is do a reset on this printer and just see if that'll clear it. What you do by doing that, what you do is hold the feed and receipt stop key down like this and then flip it off. And then wait till the green light goes off, wait about 5 to 10 seconds, then flip it back on while you hold the keys, let the keys go, and it'll print out a chit or a diagnostic chit showing you know, that the test was okay and that the RAM is okay, and then it'll also cut it like that. So now you see this cutter is cutting pretty good, it's pretty clean cut. So 6 times in 10, just doing that reset will clear it. Now if you still get an error light after doing that reset, there's a good chance that your cutter box has paper caught in it, or there's a paper issue in the cutter. Now what you want to do for this repair is bring the plastic lid up, of course, bring the cutter box up so it's in this position, and it's probably a good idea to take the paper out of the printer, and that's not the preferred method to pull it out, but I do it if you're gentle. Now for this repair you're going to need 2 things. You're going to need a small flathead screwdriver and a Phillips screwdriver. Now before you take the cutter apart, I just wanted to point out there's 2 screws on the front of the cutter box here. If you take the Phillips screwdriver and tighten these 2 screws that are near the feed and receipt stop key, if you tighten these 2 screws, that will also possibly fix your cutter box problem before you take it apart. So before you take it apart, tighten these 2 screws and then test it. You know, you run a few receipts off your register, and if it works, great, then don't take the cutter box apart. However, if you do tighten these 2 screws up, now don't tighten these things into oblivion, just tighten them so they're snug. If you do that and you still get an error reading periodically because the receipt's bound up in the cutter, then you do have to take the cutter box apart, which is what we're going to do right now. Now, in order to take the cutter box apart, you have to flip it up, and there's only 2 screws that you need to take out to do this cutter box repair. Now, you can pop this lid off here, and I sometimes do it, but it's a pain in the butt to pop this lid off. And you can try it, but just be careful you don't break it. And what I do is take a screwdriver and wedge this in here to get this off, but it's real difficult, and more than 9 times out of 10 you end up breaking the thing off. So I just leave the lid on. You just got to make sure you got a screwdriver that's short enough to get in here. Now all you have to do is take these 2, below this lip here, all you can do is take these 2 screws out. But before we take these 2 screws out, there's little clips in here that I use my flathead screwdriver to you just take these off, and they can be a little difficult. So what I do is I take my Phillips on one end, and I apologize if my big head's in the way, and my flathead on one end, and I just pop them off like this. And this is the most difficult part of this process, is popping these two clips off. And if you pop them off, you're hopefully going to pop them into the reservoir down here, and then you can just flip the printer upside down to get them out. And that's what I do, and I'm taking the screwdriver and just popping these clips off. And this one here is being a little difficult. Now, if you lose them, take one of them to the hardware store. Hardware stores sell these. Almost every hardware store carries them or carries something similar. They only cost about 20 cents, so it's not a crisis if you lose them. So then what you want to do is pull this lid off once you pop these 2 clips off. And, oh, I'm sorry, and then you also have to take out these 2 Phillips screws here. So pop this clips off first below the flange here, and then take these 2 Phillips screws out right here. Now, what you're going to see here is we're going to pull the bottom of the cutter box off, which is this plate right here. All right. Now you got to be careful not to lose these 2 washers here where these clips were. you want to make sure you get these 2 washers in here. So we're going to take these 2 washers out, like so. And I recommend that you place the stuff all in paper towels so you don't lose it, by, you know, it doesn't slide off the counter. And then what you see here is the cutter box. And there's 3 parts to this cutter. Now generally what happens is, when you take this apart, you'll instantly see probably that there's paper jammed in here. And if you want, you can just leave everything in place, and if you can get the paper out without taking everything apart, that's great. But sometimes the paper gets hidden in there, and what we want to do, there's 3 pieces you want to take off. The first thing is you want to take this rectangular piece off the top here. That's this piece right here, and put that on your piece of paper towel. And then you can see, as you can see in this cutter box, we have a little bit of paper running around in here, so we want to make sure that we clean that out. And then there's the big, what I call the V piece here, and what you want to do is just pull that out. Now you got to be careful, they're clipped onto these 2 wheel drivers here. They pull a little hard, so you want to pull that piece out. And then finally you want to pull this upside down V piece out, which sometimes can be a little challenging, why you need the flathead screwdriver. Now once you pop this out, you want to make sure all the paper is cleaned off of all these edges. You want to make sure that you don't have any paper running around where the paper feeds through right here. Now you want to be careful not to turn these wheels here. These cutter wheels are in a specific position to push the cutter bar. So don't touch any of these wheels or move any of these wheels when you're doing this. Now when you got these pieces all cleaned off, now normally there may be paper congealed to all these pieces, and you want to clean that all off. And since this cutter box didn't have any bound up pieces, what we're going to do is we're going to put it back together then. So the first thing you want to do is take your V piece and put it up so it points upward towards you. Just slide it right on there. Then you want to take your upside down V piece, or the big flange. That goes in next, and you want to make sure it catches the 2 where you put the grips on, and then you also want to make sure it catches onto those 2 rollers that I told you not to move down there. But the other thing is, you also got to make sure it gets, you got to arc it so it goes underneath, so you catch these two grips here, and then you want to put it on to make sure it snaps on, you know, these 2 internal rollers here, and then these 2 pieces right here. Then you want to take this piece, and you're going to have to now just a second. You got to make sure that these 2 points are underneath this piece. This is the last piece that goes on, and you want to make sure you got to lift up this little. Okay, you can see that I got this underneath, so I got to pull that out. You got to make sure that that's underneath. This upside down V piece, you got to make sure that these 2 points are under this piece. So if you don't get it under, that's bad. You got to get it back in. As you can see, it's not exactly the easiest task on the planet, but push down on this flange. You know, this flange that you use to push up to bring the cutter box up when you change paper. Push down on it while you're putting this on, and see it's a lot easier. Now let it down and see it'll grip this piece for you. So now we've put the cutter back together, and it should be clean of paper and all good to go. So what you want to do then is put the cover back on. And the first thing I like to do, well, I'm sorry, don't forget the washers. There's 2 washers that go where the clips go, and don't forget to put those in, because that's important. Otherwise those clips will press against the cutter too hard. Now you want to put the cover back on, and what you want to do is put your Phillips screwdriver, Phillips head screws back into the top first, and we'll tighten those. And then what we'll do is we'll dump this upside down to put the clips back on. Now these Phillips screws, you want them to be tight, but you don't want them to be overly snug. And again, you don't want to over tighten into oblivion, but they should be snug. Now what we're going to do is we're going to flip this printer upside down and see if our clips come out. And as you can see, both of them just came out like they're supposed to. So that's why it's okay to, you know, snap them out inside the printer flange, because they came all the way out. Now these clips, they sell these at the hardware store, so if you lose them, it's not a crisis. You know, you don't have to freak out. They're, you know, at most 20 cents a piece, and hardware stores sell similar ones. and I just dropped one back in there. So these clips are going to be, they're a little difficult to put on. I like to take them and, you know, stretch them with the flange screwdriver, but sometimes it doesn't always work. If you have a better method, that'd be great. We're going to pause the video to get the clips in so you don't see me struggling with this, but it is a little difficult to get those clips on. I don't disagree.